Name's Robert, and I'm an addict.
Robert!
Let's open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the we version of the serenity prayer. We. Don't do nothing by myself. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, so we're going to be on step 2 tonight. It's going to mostly be old school, just out of the basic text, reading it and going
Step
through a
3,
few
no?
things. No. We did one last week. We did one last week.
Last week was our first week?
Yes.
Oh.
That's your late, dog.
Totally lied to my sponsor. Told them we're doing step 3 today.
Okay. All right. So yeah, step 2 tonight. And I just wanted to read a little this little part here out of the step working guide, because it clarifies a few things about what we're actually doing here. So, and a lot of people take the step working guide as thinking it's going to explain it here. The title of this project for many years was the Step Writing Guide. However, we recognize that the word writing imposed a limitation on members who may be unable to write or may choose not to use writing as a means of working the 12 steps. Therefore, the title became the Step Working Guide. The Step Working Guide is a companion piece to the It Works How and Why, the Green and Gold book, and through the discussion of each of the 12 steps is contained in that work. So that this book kind of goes with that, and I believe it's kind of the more the long version, definitely. You know, the basic text is basically about 3 pages on most every step. The step working guide is about 9 to 12 on each step. So the step working guide is a companion piece to the It Works How and Why book. So there's the long version, the short version. A lot of people, including me, I think you open up the step working guide, you start reading all the questions, you think, oh my God, I got to answer all these questions. And a lot of people kind of like treat it like homework, right? Here you go, take the step working guide and go home, and when you get done answering the 71 questions, call me up and you can read your first step to me, and that's working step 1. And if they would have done that to me when I first came in, I probably would have went home. I would have bought the book. I was willing. I would have went home. I'd have opened it up. I'd have got through probably 20 questions and gotten lost in it and went ahead and finished the job with my 9mm and called it a day. I really do. I mean, because it would have been too overwhelming for me to do in the early stages of my recovery. On the long stages, though, I think it's really kind of cool that, you know, after you get through the steps the simpler way once, so you get a working knowledge of them, that, you know, when you're got a little foundation under you and you're doing the deal, you know, it's not out of line to grab a notebook and start chiseling away at answering all the questions and get a better understanding and get your head around all that kind of stuff. It says, this book contains guides to the 12 steps towards recovery. It does not contain recovery itself. Recovery is ultimately found in each member's personal experience with working the steps. You can add to these guides, delete from these guides, use them as they are. It's your choice. There's probably only one inappropriate way to use these guides. They're talking about the step working guides, and that is alone. We cannot overemphasize the importance of working with a sponsor when working these steps. So I just wanted to make sure I touched on that a little bit, because guys have been asking me, like, is what we're doing here working steps? This is working steps. We are chewing on, we are focusing on, we're going to answer some questions as a group, but then we have the questions that we can take and answer to ourselves and talk with our sponsors later on as well. So, but they're also being taught I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope in a way that I believe that kind of helps bring the basic text to light a little bit more. And I know it was really helpful for me in the beginning that somebody did that for me, because I couldn't read very well in the beginning. I mean, it would take me, I would stare at a page for a half hour, you know, and by the time I got to the end of it, I didn't know really what I had read, what I didn't. It didn't make sense, you know. I spent most of the first month rereading step 1 over and over again for the most part. And so bringing it all to life here, we're going to be on page 23, step 2. says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The second step is necessary if we expect to achieve ongoing recovery. The first step leaves us with a need to believe in something that can help us with our powerlessness, uselessness, and helplessness. The first step has left a vacuum in our lives. Why did it leave a vacuum in our lives? It took away the drugs. Okay, that's my go-to. That was my God. It was my higher power. I took all my problems. I took all my joys. I took everything in life to drugs. As long as I had drugs, everything was okay. It was the number one most important thing in my life. It was my higher power, definitely, without a doubt. So I take this thing that I go to all the time, and I didn't know how to live and enjoy life before I had found drugs. I couldn't do it. I was an emotional basket case before I ever found drugs. I suffered from the disease of addiction right from the bat. So that living a total selfish and self-centered life, I was always at odds with people. I didn't play well with people. I couldn't deal with my emotions. I just knew something was really wrong. So I tried to fix everything with more, which to me, that's the essence of the disease of addiction. You know, I run the fun out of everything, trying to get instant gratification, trying to fill this unfillable hole. Now I take the one thing that was working for me for a really long time, and I remove it, and it is like a vacuum. It's begging to be filled with something. So what do we do? You know, we come in here, we get a few days clean, and we start seeing, oh, look at her, she gave me the eye. Maybe I can get with that. You know, we can look at women and guys will look and say you can see if there's a yellow light, a green light, or a red light in the eyeballs when they look back at us. And oh, I got the yellow. I can go get that. So we start chasing something, and it's so. I mean, I did it myself. First few times I came into recovery, you know, I chased the girl out of the rooms. I chased a little job at Taco Bell out of the rooms. Crazy out chasing the money, you know. I remember having a little gambling problem, you know, getting clean and thinking that, you know, if I just hit the big one, I could pay off all my traffic and get my traffic tickets out of warrants and finally get my driver's license back. And so I got really hooked on gambling for a while. And I really hadn't gotten through the steps, but I was clean and going to meetings, and every week I'd get paid. And I'd buy me a carton of cigarettes. I'd pay my rent at the weekly at the Casino Arms apartment down on Casino Center Boulevard. I'd buy me about enough macaroni and cheese to get me through till Tuesday or Wednesday of the next week. And then I'd go blow all the rest of my money, my check, on gambling, hoping that I was going to hit the lick and be able to pay off the loan. The insanity of chasing that, or my warrants. The insanity was, like almost a year later, I realized if I'd just been sending off $50 a week, those tickets would have already been paid off by now, you know. So anyway, it was just the gambling trying to fill the hole with the wrong stuff again. And if we don't get involved with trying to find the right stuff to fill the hole first, before the desperation fades, that's the key, you know, because desperation is really important when we're brand new, because that's really what I use to reach out to this power greater than myself, or tap into the fellowship of we. It's not always the God thing, you know. It doesn't have to be God in the second step, you know. It's just the power that we can do something that I can't do on my own. It doesn't have to be this infinite loving God. It can be to you if you're open to it, but it does not have to be. It can be the good orderly direction, the group of druggies, but that's the vacuum, and that's what the second step is all about, pointing us in the direction of doing that. We need to find something to fill that void, the right stuff, hopefully. This is the purpose of the second step. Some of us didn't take this step seriously at first. We passed over it with a minimum of concern, only to find that the next steps would not work until we worked step 2. I didn't really realize I was all that crazy. Even when we admitted that we needed help with our drug problem, many of us would not admit the need for faith and sanity. I just need to get this monkey off my back. I'm okay other than that, right? We have a disease, progressive, incurable, and fatal. One way or another, we went out and bought our destruction on the time payment plan. All of us, from the junkie snatching purses to the sweet little old lady hitting 2 or 3 doctors for legal prescriptions, have one thing in common. We seek our destruction a bag at a time, a few pills at a time, or a bottle at a time until we die. This is at least part of the insanity of the disease of addiction. I spoke of some of it already. The price may seem higher to the addict who prostitutes for a fix than it is for an addict who merely lies to a doctor. Ultimately, both pay for their disease with their lives. Insanity is repeating the same mistakes, expecting different results. I sold myself all the time too. I don't know if, a lot of you hear me say that, you know, my dope dealer was my best friend. I was a really, for a guy that didn't know how to be a friend, I was a really good friend to my dope dealer. You know, if he needed me for whatever reason, I was his huckleberry. I was there. Dropped whatever I was doing, rearranged my calendar, and I was there for him every second. My mom called and asked me for help, and it's like, well, can't you get somebody to help you move this weekend, Mom? I'm kind of busy. You know, I'm thinking of excuses of how I can't do it. You know, crazy little stuff. When you think about it in terms of what's important to me now, and what I thought was important to me earlier, and really, you know, I didn't like the guy all that much. That was my dope dealer. So I really sold myself. You know, I was doing something I didn't really want to do for him for only one thing: get more dope. The insanity of thinking that outside stuff is going to fix this inside problem. After 38 years, I should have realized, you know, that it didn't matter. Money, property, prestige, the girl, the money, the car, the job. That I was always thinking prior to this that, you know, if I just got everything all right, that I was going to be happy, that I was going to find that missing combination that was going to make everything all right. It talks about it in our basic text in the earlier chapters, and I was always chasing that. And every time I was chasing whatever it was, the new chopper that I was going to build, or the race car that I was building, the happiest I really ever was in the midst of the hunt, when I was really close to closing the deal, to getting what I thought was the end level, which was getting the cookie from the girl, or winning the race, or building the badass chopper and driving it around the bike. The moment I closed the deal and rode it around the block, got the cookie, I was less disappointed. I was like, well, that didn't fix this in here either. That probably sounds really good on the mic too, by the way. But that didn't quite get it either. So that's the obsessive compulsive nature trying to find something to fill that hole. The vacuum it's always going on whether I've got drugs or not. I'm always looking for more. You know, even when I had the money, the dope, and the girl, I was always never quite satisfied with what I had. I was never content. I always wanted more. And something better, different, you know, a different twist on it, different kind of drug. Let's do it different positions. Let's paint it a different color. You know, if I did it this way, it'll be better. And loss of a sufficient solution, the more, better, faster was the thing that I chased, trying to find that happiness that I was trying to chase my whole life. And literally I didn't realize it my whole life. I mean, I look back at it now and all through grade school, you know, all the trouble I got into as a kid literally was a direct result of being a selfish, spoiled little brat that was spiritually bankrupt. I did not know that I was spiritually bankrupt as a kid. I didn't know how to share and play well with others and compromise and have compassion for other people. You know, I knew how to exchange stuff. You know, I knew how to give you just enough so you give me what I needed from you. Everything had a string attached. There was never any just random kindness. I don't know where I lost it at what age, but I lost that sweet innocent boy thing. I don't remember ever even having it. You know, I see some pictures of me when I was younger. It looks like he was a cute little innocent boy, but I remember, man, I was always, at 5 years old, I was stealing stuff, you know, and lying about it, being the only child in the house. Nobody else is doing it, you know, but I'm lying about these things. All right, so all these types of insanity leading on our whole lives, the self-deceptions. I mean, looking back at how much I lied to myself, how many times I did the experiment of I'm gonna buy a quarter ounce of this, and I'm gonna break it up into grams, and I'm gonna hide it around the house, and I'm gonna make it last all week, and I'm gonna take the rest of my money, I'm gonna pay my rent. And I do this experiment over and over and over, and always wind up broke and having to borrow money by Sunday to get through the next week, you know, cause I kept a job most of my using, because I knew I had to either do that or I had to go commit felonies and wind up in prison. So I worked really hard to supply my habit. I mean, the drugs pimped me out on the street. I worked 2 jobs most of the time, you know, kept my regular day job, and I was always hustling, working on the side. And looking back at it now, it was all just to make sure that my supply did not get interrupted, that I could pay my bills, keep a roof over my family's head, as long as I did that and kept the money coming. For what? The vicious circle, over and over and over, you know. The price may seem higher to the addict who merely prostitutes for a fix than it does for an addict that merely lies to a doctor. I read that already. Ultimately, both pay for their disease with their lives. Insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. Many of us realize when we get to the program that we've gone back time and again to using, even though we knew that we were destroying our lives. Lack of a sufficient solution, I went back to it. Insanity is using day after day, knowing that only physical and mental destruction comes when we use. The most obvious insanity of the disease of addiction is the obsession to use drugs. You know, the hanging on to the one thing that's creating all the problems and letting go of all the other things in my life. You know, instead of getting rid of the one thing that is creating all the problems in every other area, I do just the opposite. Ask ourselves the question, do I believe that it would be insane to walk up to someone and say, may I please have a heart attack or a fatal accident? If you can agree that this would be an insane thing, you should have no problem with the second step. But essentially, what are we doing, right? In this program, the first thing that we do is stop using drugs. At this point, we begin to feel the pain of living without drugs or anything to replace them. We're brand new. We come in, we get our first few days clean, and, you know, it usually doesn't take... Many of us, I mean, several times that I came back to the fellowship, especially after getting a good ass kicking out there, just coming back to the rooms and getting some hugs from people that gave me some love, I would feel that energy, and I'd feed on that energy for a minute when I first get back here. But it usually only took a couple of weeks before you guys just turned into a bunch of assholes again. And I started building cases against people that didn't treat me quite right, or, you know, didn't respond to me the way I thought they should, and whatever. I mean, I create these cases, and bottom line is that I was empty in here, and I didn't have the coping mechanism anymore to deal with people. So I didn't have any basis to really live on a sound basis. The pain of living without drugs or anything to replace them, that's what forces me to get a working relationship with a power greater than myself. For me, I came into my first NA meetings and I'd hear these people saying, I'm a grateful recovering addict named so-and-so. And I'd be like, you're grateful for having this disease? You know, I was pissed off that God gave me this disease, you know? Why didn't God let me be like a normal person, you know? Why couldn't I be one of those guys that, you know, get a six-pack and leave half of it in the refrigerator, drink one or two, and have some the next week for some friends, or buy a quarter ounce of weed and let it still have some 2-3 weeks later or something like that, or, you know, get an 8-ball and have some for a friend later. I don't know how people even thought about doing that kind of shit, but I still don't know anybody that really does that. But the weed and the alcohol, I knew people that were like that, you know. And I was mad when I first as 15 years old, when I first came to my first NA meetings, you know, I was kind of resentful at God for making me an addict. Mm-hmm. Why can't you know, they say he favors me. Why couldn't he have made me like this or that? But the truth was, I never wanted to be a little high, honestly. So anyway, I couldn't understand where guys were coming from saying that they were really grateful. And I still think that most people that say it today don't really understand what it is they're saying. You know, they hear other people saying those phrases, and it sounds good, and it doesn't sound like the normal person that just says I'm an addict, or I'm an addict by the name of whatever. Everybody wants to be a little different, put a different spin on it. And today I understand it. I don't introduce myself that way, but I understand it. And the reason I understand it is because I really believe that the disease of addiction is the only thing powerful enough on the face of this earth to force me into getting a working relationship with a power greater than myself. Nothing else that I've ever experienced, the relationships, the money, no other physical pain, nothing else I've ever experienced in life I can imagine that would drive me to the point where, okay, God, whatever you want, to get me to that surrendering point. You know, the disease kicked my ass. It put me to the point where I was willing to go to any lengths, whatever I had to do. Oh, okay, so I can't lie, cheat, and steal no more. I'm supposed to live by spiritual principles. Okay, God. When I was younger, that was no. So that was still optional. When I was younger, the indispensable principles, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, those were optional as long as they fitted my whatever I needed to get done. Today, I tell the truth to the best of my ability 100% of the time. You know, I don't lie in any way, shape, or form. If I'm lying, I'm lying to myself too, because I'm in a degree of self-deception, which I believe that we all live in to one degree or another. You know, I'm never quite the hero I think I am. I'm never quite the zero I think I am. Somewhere I'm in the middle of it, but I don't always have that accurate perspective. But that being grateful that I got this disease, you look at normal people out there, and normal people out there I don't see many people out there ever that have this relationship like we get to have around here. I really believe that because we're forced out of desperation, that we're at the level that we need help, that God comes to us when we really ask for it, that it's just really good. You know, I don't know any other way to explain it, you know, except for that pain forces us to seek a power greater than ourselves that can relieve our obsession to use or go on to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, right? The process of coming to believe is similar for most addicts. Most of us lacked a working relationship with a power greater than ourselves. If it worked for us, we wouldn't be here, right? We begin to develop this relationship by simply admitting to the possibility of a power greater than ourselves. Most of us have no trouble admitting that addiction had become a destructive force in our lives. Our best efforts resulted in ever greater destruction and despair. We kept trying to figure out a different way to do it, different combinations. No matter what we did, we still wind up. I never met a drug I didn't like. I didn't like them in the beginning, or they maybe didn't give me the high that I wanted, but I kept doing them and giving them multiple chances until it did work. Weed didn't work for me in the beginning. I didn't feel any buzz, but I kept smoking it till it became one of my top favorites for a while, you know. Alcohol didn't hit me quite that way either for a while, but I liked it, you know, the go fast and the coke, and then getting on the opiates. I never really did very much of the straight up heroin, but I did a whole bunch of pharmaceuticals and pills. And, you know, it may not have been exactly the same thing, but it was in the ballpark with being the same kind of slavery to it. But I ran the full gamut of it, you know, tried different types of things, trying to find that right combination that was going to work for me, that I was going to be able to function, you know. Because being a teenager, I was like, man, if I could just be a functioning alcoholic, that would be all right compared to what I was doing. That was like a goal of mine when I was like, okay, God, if you won't let me be a normie, could you just let me be a functioning alcoholic? You know, who can't afford a, you know, $20, $30 a day alcohol habit? And, you know, as long as you can force yourself to go to work hungover the next day and keep going on to the bitter ends, you can go on that slow ride to hell for quite a while. But, you know, I had to try it. I had to prove to myself that it wasn't going to work for me. At some point, we realized that we needed help of some power greater than our addiction. Our understanding of a higher power is up to us. No one is going to decide for us. We can call it the group, the program, or we can call it God. The only suggested guidelines are that this power be loving, caring, and greater than ourselves. And one thing I love about Narcotics Anonymous especially is versus the fellowship that we got the steps from. There's no inference of any relationship or any religion being favored. This is as far as NA comes, loving, caring, and more powerful than our addiction pretty much is it. That's how we understand God or our higher power to be. So when you see the italicized in the steps, when they write them and it says God as we understand God, God as we understand God as Narcotics Anonymous is that. You know, loving, caring, more powerful than NA takes us to that point, and the rest of it's up to us to explore and find out what fits for us ourselves. They don't try to force any type of God in any way, shape, or form, say we got to pray any certain kind of way. There's even a big debate on our third step. If you notice in the third step prayer, where it says the third step prayer in there, and we all call it the third step prayer, the book doesn't call it a prayer. And the reason they don't call it a prayer is because if you don't pray, you can call it a quote. They left it purposely open like that. They didn't say, many of us, you know, that we all pray this way. They say, if they would have wanted the word pray, believe me, they argued over almost every important word in this book. So if they had meant for it to say prayer, they would have wrote, many of us have prayed. They said, many of us have said, because it's your own individual right to decide whether you pray or whether you meditate or whether you don't do that at all. It just has said that. So just that little tidbit. That's what I love that in Narcotics Anonymous we have that total absolute freedom to discover your own relationship with a higher power. And in fact, the last time I came in, I think one of the best things that my sponsor told me was, look, Raz, your idea of God so far, your whole life, 38 years old, has not worked for you. You know, I had parochial school. I had a Baptist grandmother that she tried her best to try to help me with religion, and nothing. I couldn't get my head around nothing. I couldn't tap into the power. It just wasn't there for me. I just didn't think God liked me in that way. And okay, some special people get it and some people don't. I'm obviously one that he doesn't. I'm not very favored. I never felt favored. You know, I always felt that if God favored me, I would have been born a rich, skinny white boy on the beach instead of a fat roly-poly in La Puente. You know, I mean, I would have been dealt the Brady Bunch hand of cards instead of the hand of cards that I got if I was favored. So I couldn't look at that I was blessed to have what I had. I only looked at what I didn't have. So I blamed my problems on this God thing, and having the freedom to start over again, like my sponsor said, he says, just start over. He said, if Christianity or Buddhism or whatever it's supposed to be is supposed to be meant to you again, you start over like a reset on a pinball machine. Just start it all over. Continue working the rest of the steps. Continue praying or meditating in whatever fashion you like, however you feel to do it. But hang on to whatever you think God is loosely and let that come to you as you work the steps. And that was really freeing for me. You know, I didn't have to put God in a box and follow somebody else's definition or description of it. I could read and study and apply some little things. So it was really important for me to definitely take the fire and brimstone God and take that out to the curb and leave it there and just start off with this loving, caring, more powerful than myself God and start from there, you know, and however we believe will evolve. We don't have to be religious to accept this idea. The point is that we open our minds to believe. We may have difficulty with this, but by keeping an open mind, sooner or later we find the help we need. We talked and listened to others. We saw other people recovering and they told us what was working for them. We began to see evidence of some power that couldn't be fully explained. Confronted with this evidence, we began to accept the existence of a power greater than ourselves. We can use this power long before we understand it. Now, one cardinal thing for me, from the very first time I came to NA meetings, every time I came and took a white key tag and started back over, and I relapsed more times than I could remember, but every time I come back and I just follow directions, get on my 90 meetings, 90 day, do what I suggested to do, stay late, try to get to there a little bit early and do the ashtrays, brooms, and cups, which that was the ABCs back in the day because we had cigarettes and, you know, you clean up everything. And do those little things. Every time I did those things, my life started going better. And I would see outside circumstances that kind of was, you know, not like God was favoring me, like I was saying, but like little things like an opportunity to get a pack of cigarettes would fall out of the sky. An opportunity to make a couple of dollars would fall out of the sky. You know, it would go from, you know, I mean, the end to every run before I got clean, it would be like nothing I did would, you know, I couldn't get my shit together. You know, we get in those little, you know, no matter how hard we try to get our groove going again and get back on the roll or get the stack together so we can start making some money again or however we're doing it. We can't do it, and then we come in and get clean, and, you know, all of a sudden the judge gives us a little bit of a break. You know, they let the warrants be a little bit less, you know. I mean, you just get that little sense of outside things being a little bit better. And I think most of us, when we're new, I like to think that that's God's hand just patting us in the back saying, dude, just keep doing this. You know, just keep recovery the number one thing. If you keep staying clean coming first, like it talks about in the very beginning of the step one that we just worked last week, that staying clean must come first, that if I just stay focused on that and the we part of this fellowship and staying plugged in, that the rest of the stuff is going to just start falling into place. You know, I don't have to recreate the wheel. I don't have to invent recovery. It's already laid out for me. All I got to do is stay in this process and follow through with the rest of the steps. And they're all nice little baby steps, and they all flow together super nice as long as I keep my head in them. You know, if I want to get distracted by outside stuff and chase her and chase that and chase these things, I'm going to get the same results of chasing that stuff that I got before. But if I can muster up the energy to just stay focused on this, try filling this hole with the right stuff, which is what we're doing right here. We're filling up with the right stuff in here. This That's what we do. Confronted with this evidence, we began to accept the existence of a power greater than ourselves. We can use this power long before we understand it. As we see coincidences and miracles happening in our lives, acceptance becomes trust. And in the beginning, trust and faith, it's a blind faith, right? I got nothing better to do, right? Okay, well, I'll try this God thing or whatever it is maybe. But I got no better options, right? I'm tore up from the floor up. There's nowhere to go but up. I can't lose anything. It's really easy to surrender my life when I ain't got shit. Yeah. Okay, I got nothing. So, okay, God, what? Show me. Impress me. Show me what you can do with it. And then we started seeing, like I was saying a second ago, little things and little coincidences and stuff like happening. And either I can do one or two things. I can discount all these things to just random coincidences and freaks of nature, or I can use this magic case building machine I have between my ears to build negative cases, and I can use it for something that serves me well. And I can start building the case that my life is good and it's getting better every minute. When my sponsor just said, dude, just start saying please and thank you throughout the day. Just in the morning, you say, please remove the obsession and compulsion to use and keep me clean for today. And at the end of the day, I say thank you. And in the middle of the day, just keep saying, don't add any long sentences, just little things happen, please and thank you, please and thank you. And just throw that little energy out there instead of, motherfucker this, that whole negative energy, just feeding the positive stuff. It was huge for me, Hey, my sponsor tell me things like, go do something nice for somebody and don't get caught. Do a random act of kindness. I'm like, what does this have to do with spirituality? And it has a hell of a lot to do for getting out of myself. I mean, the biggest problem I have is my selfishness and self-centeredness. So doing a random act of kindness and actually taking a moment to think of doing something for somebody else without any string attached, literally, that is essentially trying to do God's work, but it's just joining the human race. Normal people do that for people all the time out there, and I never did. And if I did, I expected God to give me green lights to work the next day. I wanted a break. I wanted something, and I had to quit keeping score. As we see coincidences and miracles happening in our lives, acceptance becomes trust. We grow to feel comfortable with our higher power as a source of strength, whether it's the group or a God, too, again. As we learn to trust this power, we begin to overcome the fear of life. So trust is just like if I first meet somebody, I don't trust you when I meet you. That relationship, whenever our relationship starts, trust is not automatic. I don't trust anybody 100%. You know why I don't trust anybody 100%? Because I don't trust this guy 100%. The only thing I trust absolute 100% is God. Everybody else is human and therefore fallible. We can all make mistakes. You guys are gonna let me down. You're gonna hurt my feelings. Nothing is gonna be always perfect. I have to accept that it's gonna be that way, and that's life. But I do know that through building this trust with God, that God is gonna help me get through dealing with all you guys. That's what God does for me. This higher power, that I tap into this source of power, and it is the thing that makes you guys manageable to me. It's a little bit of a stretch on step 2 to push it that direction, I know, but when we start pushing the force of goodness instead of the force of negativity and selfishness, it's just the way things get manifested in our lives. We're thinking about each other, and also with our first tradition in Narcotics Anonymous, our common welfare coming first, that we as a whole thinking about each other, I'm reaching out to this guy and that guy. Hey man, how'd you doing? Hey, how's day 11 today? How's day 8 today? We reach out to people, and that's how the power of we and the beginning part of a power greater than ourselves really starts working for us. Is in the energy of it all. Let's see, we're almost done with this. Begin to overcome our fear of life. The process of coming to believe restores us to sanity. The strength to move into action comes from this belief. We need to accept this step to start on the road to recovery. When our belief has grown, we are ready for step 3. There's a lot more questions in the step working guide we went over last time. But we're going to use these questions, this short version of the questions that came out of the step working guide right here. And there are a couple of guys here that weren't last week, so I'm going to explain it real quick. So on the questions we have here, it's going to, did you get one? Oh, well, I gave him one. Why don't you pass one over?
He's got two.
All right.
Michael doesn't have one either.
Well, it's the same one you had last week.
Oh.
Do you have it? Do you need another one? You got it? Okay. Yeah, step 2 is on the back of page 1. Does anybody else need one? I've got plenty. It's paper's cheap. I know, guys. That's why I brought extras. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, if on the parentheses part, it'll say SWG number 1. If you were to take your step working guide and number the questions, which they don't have them numbered already, every section has a number, step 1 has so many questions in it. And if you start at every one of the black dots that are in there and just start numbering them through the book, that's how you can find out where these questions came from that are on this sheet. And I just say that, the main reason I say that is because there's the step working guide, and then there's a lot of other written questions in Narcotics Anonymous that treatment centers and people have kind of came up with their own questions and thought what they thought was good. All the questions that we're using here came out of the step working guide. So we have plenty of literature in our fellowship. We don't have to reinvent it. We don't have to come up with our own or borrow shit from Hazleton or any of these other places that are in the treatment center business and stuff like that. Though some of that stuff may be really good, Narcotics Anonymous has its own, and it works very well too. And it's written for addicts by addicts and voted on and approved by hundreds of thousands of people versus a few. So this is where we get them from, and in the section on the step working guide, if all the italicized and all the squiggly lines and writing that's in there, when you open up a step working guide, you'll see how it was all taken from the book, and there's a lot of good stuff in there too to go with it. But this is just the quick, simple version. Anyway, we went through a few years back, and about 14 years ago, Joe Y and I went through this thing and took quite a while and just kind of wanted to take the repetitive, hit me over the head, thank you, sir, may I have another kind of questions where you're asking it 5 times in the same thing. And we cut it all out. But we wanted to make sure that we took questions out of each section and each heading in the book to be a fair representation of it. I mean, it's no end all be all, like the book says there is no such thing anyway, but it's better than not having anything. And before we had the step working guide, we didn't have any written questions as a fellowship. We had to use a lot of other stuff from other people. So it's kind of nice to have something that's approved, and so we know what the important questions are. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Our White Booklet states that there is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. This doesn't mean that we must be unfailingly honest. I lied to myself so much, I don't know whether I'm lying to myself half the time or not. Open-minded or willing. We just have to try the best we can to practice these principles. I know when I'm trying to lie most of the time. I just have to try to stay as honest as I can. And remember, we're also each other's eyes and ears, so sometimes other people can help give us a different look and a different angle on things. But then the section on insanity, the step working guide, says, "Did I believe that I can control my using?"
Yes.
Did you, Chris? How did you try to control your using, Chris?
Like you said, I'll buy more and try to use less, or save it, or put a time restraint on it. Like, I'm gonna use some at this time, or then later tonight I'll use a little bit of, half a gram instead of a gram.
And this much has to be sold, right?
Yeah,
I'll get to you one in a minute. We're gonna go around and bounce it around the room. Yeah, what do you need?
I was just wanting to add to it my perspective on that.
Okay, what?
And as far as
Who are you?
I was guessing at one point, probably.
Who are you?
I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian.
I'm an addict.
Hi, Brian.
All right.
Right on,
And yes, at one point, I thought I can control it, being the weekend warrior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that was, 100 years ago, whatever. But, as we all know, that failed, and here I am.
We always become our own best customer. It's essentially what it boils down to. That's what we do. We set all these parameters, and we're going to sell this much, and we have to sell this much. If I don't sell this much, I have to re-up. Then I get down to that much. I think, well, if I stomp on it this much, then I can make it last this much more. And by the time you get done, nobody wants any of your shit anymore because it's junk. I don't even want to do my stuff anymore. So the second part of that question was, were my efforts successful? We're all here, right? Some questions don't really need much chewing on. A lot of them are no-brainers. But even the no-brainer questions, they're good ones to ask ourselves, because every time we ask ourselves these questions, we're reinforcing our recovery. We're building a better foundation on the honesty. So I can't continue to lie to myself or say it's going to be different this time and this is how. It's trying to get that identification of complete acceptance and ultimately complete surrender to this deal. Number 3, did I put myself in dangerous situations to get drugs? Lee?
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to give you an example?
Yeah.
So my old dealer, he was like hooked up with the cartel, and he'd always be bad about paying them. And sometimes when they didn't pay him for a while, like they'd come and kind of kidnap him in his own house and threaten him, and he'd have to call his parents or whatever. Anyway, so I needed shit, and he was kidnapped in his own house. And I talked him into letting me come over because I wanted to get some shit. And then so I walked in, and then these guys come out of the fucking shadows all tweaked out, cartel dudes, and I'm like, oh, okay. And anyway, he talked to him, he's like, this is my mechanic, he's got like my car. I'm like, cool, whatever. And then we go in the garage and I get the shit. And I should have just ran off, but I wanted to smoke.
Right.
We sit there and smoke, and then that's just one thing. But yeah, so that was pretty dangerous.
All right. Number 4, did I behave in ways in which I'm now ashamed? I'm not gay, but $20. Is this $20? Anybody have any takers on that one? Michael, you like that one? You had a good laugh on that one. Save that for the 4th step, huh? Okay. Antonio?
Yeah.
Any ways you were ashamed of? And it doesn't have to be raunchy ashamed things.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally, we do this stuff and we look in the mirror and hate ourselves for doing the stuff that we do, man. Even just simply not being the father that I knew I could be, that kind of shame is plenty.
Yeah. Broke into a church once. I started grabbing a bunch of stuff, and I actually walked out with nothing. I stole a cell phone from a blind crippled man once. He asked me to help him make a phone call. And I'm like, well, he can't.
You're gonna burn
run
me
after me. And he can't, and he can't identify it.
There's a way to make it all right. I'm just fucking with
Yeah. I did return it 2 weeks later. Yeah. But that was one thing. I mean, I had many victims out there, right? I used to go around opening car doors and just taking shit. And then I would stash my stuff because I was still going, and I could never find my stash. So I would steal all these things, and I could never make anything of it because I would forget. I couldn't remember where I put it. But yeah, like I said, also neglected my family, my kids, and everything like that.
5, did I make insane decisions as a result of my addiction, Adam?
Yeah, I found his stash and did his shit. I didn't know if it was any good or not. I could have had shit in it. Yeah, I found somebody's stash on the side of the house. The guy stashed it in the pool box, and I was cleaning the pool box out, and there was a little pipe, and there was a baggie of stuff. There was some of his porno. There was his wallet and his phone, and I was like, oh, little baby, like, yeah, it's kind of insane, I think, not even knowing where that shit came from.
Okay, number 6. Did I quit jobs, leave friendships or other relationships, or give up on achieving other goals for no other reason than those things interfered with my using?
Yeah, I left my family in New York to come out to Vegas to get high. I mean, my wife wasn't drunk and I couldn't stand it, but I did leave my kids and my grandkids behind 10 years ago and have not been back since.
You got good ways to clean all that stuff up too, man. That's the beautiful thing about the steps. We're this is a little bit of a tearing down, but at the same time, this process builds it all back up and gives us a way to fix. There's not a single problem that anybody can face that hasn't already been solved in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. Every problem, every scenario, somebody else. I mean, I have not experienced, and I don't have experience on everything, but there's always somebody that has experience. Like, I've never been through a divorce, so when I sponsor a guy that's going through a divorce, I turn him over to somebody else that I know went through a divorce and did it with dignity and respect and didn't turn into a batshit crazy guy and stayed clean through it, and I'll turn him on to somebody like that. And that's what we do around here. You know, we kind of network that way because nobody has it all together, but together we have it all. And there's a solution for everything. There's a fix for everything. Nothing is, it's not over. You know, this is just the beginning of our life right here. Number 7, has my life been out of balance lately?
Sean Addict.
Hey, Sean.
Lately, yeah, I could say it's been a little out of balance, but it's only because I wasn't really going through the process and working my program, being active in my program the way that I have learned to do. My mind plays tricks on me. So when I think, okay, I got a sponsor, I got a home group, I'm doing my steps, I'm doing a meeting a week. I think I'm in recovery and everything's great, but theoretically, a lot of thoughts are coming all day long. A lot of things are going on. You know, I'm getting mad at the littlest things. And but what I've learned is the more that I come to my meetings and the more that I reach out and the more questions I ask and the more that I'm involved, then I've got a lot more balance in my life. And yeah.
Your balance has been a lot better since the retreat.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Number 8, does my insanity tell me that the things outside myself can make me whole or solve all my problems, like using drugs, compulsive gaming, overeating, sex, something else, trying to find something to fill that hole, Bradley?
Hi, I'm Bradley. I'm an addict.
Hey, Bradley.
All the time. Especially a lot lately, you know, when it comes down to like my sex life with the woman, being pregnant, not having that urge, you know, being young, you know, it's an urge for me. It's something that I would like to endure, and not getting that even prior to the pregnancy has been really setting me off in my relationship. So things have been a lot rocky, and I think, well, maybe if I just do this little sneak around at work, we could hit the car, you know. I get these dirty thoughts in my mind, and then I pray about it, and through prayer, it's been helping me a lot. You know, I took some suggestions a couple weeks ago and been hitting my knees every night, right at 9 o'clock, and it's been helping me a lot. But the overeating, I don't eat too much, but when I do eat, it's a whole bunch of bullshit, you know. The sweets help me relieve myself from the way that I feel. And looking at my family history, diabetics, and you know, that's where I'm headed if I don't find a healthier outlet. That's all I have to share.
Thanks for sharing.
Anybody else want to tackle that one a little?
Yeah, Bradley, just
That hasn't already-
Give me a minute. Don't pretend I'm not even here.
Number 9, is part of my insanity the belief that the symptom of my addiction, using drugs or some other manifestation, is my only problem. Right? Number 9, is part of my insanity the belief that the symptom of my addiction, just the dope or Using drugs or some other manifestation is my only problem. So it goes back. That question really ties back to the beginning of this in the basic text where it talks to many of us we admitted that we needed help with our drug problem, but we wouldn't admit the need for faith and sanity. The big part of faith is that without faith, I'm living in fear. Yeah. Okay, when I'm living in fear all the time, all my defects of character are run riot. Now it gets dealt with further down the road. But literally, my defects of character are attached to my defects, are attached to fear of me not getting my way. If I don't think I'm going to get what I want when I want it as fast as I want, I know that this defective bag of tools over here, anger, aggression, selfishness, I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to force that square peg in a round hole, and it may not be pretty. Nobody else is going to be happy about it, but I'm going to get what I want. And the insistence that I think I'm going to find happiness by doing that. So that doesn't work. That's insane. Because even when I get what I want, even when I got the money, the dope, and the girl, I'm still a miserable SOB, okay? So the need for faith and sanity is that by living in faith and building up trust with a higher power, I don't have to live in the defective characters anymore. I can keep in living on the assets, which is love and tolerance and understanding, knowing that my higher power is going to take care of me and give me what I need. I may not always get what I want, but I get everything I need. And when I try to live in my higher power's will, that is going to be even so much better. And I don't have to be so worried about where's getting mine, because that's the biggest part of our disease is always looking out for just me and, getting my cookie, and getting my gratification and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm grounded in faith, dude, and life hits me with a curveball and throws that random shit sandwich at me anymore, most of the time I don't get batshit crazy over it anymore. And it may be at first a little instinctual to react, in a aggressive kind of manner, but for now, I have a trust. I don't have to go and do dirty shit to make sure that I get my will done. I can easily surrender and say, okay, God, thy will be done, not mine. I'm cool with it, however it works out. It's not worth being a dick today to get my way and cut off my relationship with my higher power that I've worked so hard to get, and by praying and especially meditating, I'm able to have some peace and some quiet and some sanity where I'm not always like a squirrel looking for a nut. I don't have my head on a swivel always looking for my next one, whatever. It's not about that. And my life before was all about that. Everything. I couldn't sit still because I was always, focusing in a meeting like this was hard to do because my head's 5 million miles away. I'm building my cabin. I'm working on a car. Or there's always something that my head wants to take me away. So being present is a huge part, and that's where the faith and sanity comes in, and that's where spiritual development comes in. Spiritual bankruptcy. I didn't know I had an account when I got clean. Mm-hmm. What do you mean bankrupt? I never paid any attention to it. That's why I think so firmly on doing these men's retreats and stuff like that, taking a weekend here and there out of our lives to spend the weekend feeding our spirits, and because we don't do that. And to go do that a couple times a year to retreat, I'm blessed. I have my place up in Utah where I can get up there and be out in nature by myself. Quite often, but a lot of people that are here locally, it's few and far between, and I'm not preaching nothing out of the Bible, but there's one little thing that I share all the time that I read in there, that there's a thing in there in the Bible where it talks about that even Jesus had to go out in nature to talk to God. And if that's the case, then going out and unplugging, whether it's in my backyard in the grass or stopping at a park and sitting on a park bench, getting out in some kind of nature to unwind and work on a relationship with God, that is really, part of the anti-sanity, of getting some sanity, having some peace and some serenity. There's how we kind of find those things. There's a lot of tools we have, and I know it's a little all over the place with those little tools. It's not all second step stuff, but it's very important, you know. The 11th step is actually one that my sponsor also told me, you know, you don't have to wait until you get to the 11th step to try seeking knowledge of God's will for you and the power to carry that out. We may not know what God's will is for you, but you know what God's will isn't for you. I mean, my gut is always spot on with knowing what is not God's will for me. And when I stop doing the things I know is not God's will for me, and then I just try to throw in a little random acts of kindness on top of that on the other end, I'm going to be pretty damn close to what God's will is for me. Coming to believe. Do I have any fears about coming to believe? You know, that I'm cool, God don't know where I'm at right now, you know, I don't really want to talk to him because if he knows where I'm at, that lightning bolt might finally find me, right? Jerome.
I've recently been dealing with this. It's hard to let God do the driving. And it's because I'm so used to driving the bus. And where it leads me is never anywhere good. And it's hard to just take my hands off the wheel and have faith that, you know, God's will is going to be done through me. And everything I need, I'm going to get, you know, and not to sit here and try to make things work my way or, you know, sit here and try to let that old addict mindset come in and try to hustle my way into things or do stupid things that I know for a fact don't work.
I think as addicts, the biggest thing I believe why we don't really why we're afraid of God's will, for me, it was mostly, you know, God's will for me is to be a sweater wearing Mr. Rogers, you know, plain Jane vanilla looking dude that, you know, didn't have any fun and was all about just service and goodwill and that there wasn't going to be anything left for me to go have fun, right? And that God was going to want me to, you know, go build houses for homeless people in Mexico or something, you know, that God was going to call me to go do some stuff like that. You know, if I really, really abandoned myself to God, how would God really use me if I really wanted to go there? And I really don't think that God commands and demands that from everybody. So I believe some people do have callings to do things like that. I know I've got quite a few light years to go a different direction before that's probably going to happen with me. I just need to come down to the basics of, you know what, I did it 38 years my way, self-will run riot. Could God's will for me be any worse than what I've put myself through? I mean, really, could God screw my life up any worse than what I did? By trying to live by spiritual principles, what do I really have to lose when I get down to it? You know, and being honest with that is really important. 11, do I have any other barriers that make it difficult for George to believe?
George Addict.
George!
None. I've always believed there was something out there. I just didn't want to accept it because it was really bigger.
12, has my belief grown in recovery? Brian?
To what? Evidence that the power greater than myself?
No.
No.
Has my belief grown since I've been in recovery?
Of course it has. Without the belief that there's a power greater than myself, man, I'd be lost. Prior to getting the almost 5 months I've got, man, I was absolutely lost. So, because I believe that there is a power greater than myself, you know, I think I'm in a step in the right direction.
A power greater than ourselves. Do I have a problem accepting that there is a power or powers greater than myself? Anybody here think they're more powerful?
No.
That's a good one though, but I mean, but also, you know, you got to think too, we hear these things and some of these questions are easy to answer, but how do I live? Really? How easy is it for me to stand aside and say, okay, God, you know, thy will be done, and really try to seek to do that, even when I have other plans? You know, I mean, I have plans, I have missions, I have motives, I have things that I have to check myself on. How easily do I allow my plans, my mission of the day, take a back seat to what God lays out in front of me to do? When my higher power puts somebody in front of me to help or something like that, you know, how much will I rearrange my mission? Was that somebody knocking?
Voices in your head.
I heard something tapping. Okay. Heard a little. All right. Power greater than ourselves, 13. Do I have a problem accepting that there, did that one, 14. Can a power greater than myself help me stay clean and recover? Go ahead, Jerome.
Of course.
Let's hear it again.
Of course.
You had a short one before.
Jerome Attic.
Hey, Jerome.
I mean, you have to have that faith in order to recover, because you have to, through the first step, go to admit that you don't have you can't do it on your own, and I've seen that, so yeah, I have to put my faith into a higher power, because if I don't, I mean, I know what's out there for me, and it's not jails, institutions, it's only death that's out there for me, so I have to, have faith that God's got me.
Okay, number 15, I would like everybody to answer 15. Everybody take a quick little 1 minute, 2 minutes, and great. Do I have evidence that a power greater than myself is working in my life?
Yes,
100%.
My name's Ray. I'm an addict. I'm clean today. You know what I'm saying? I'm clean today. I mean, I could only give that up. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's evidence.
Want to go around in order?
Yeah, Mike.
Everyone's answering.
My name's Mike and Mike.
Maybe I'll skip it around and catch people off
I have
guard.
absolute evidence because I prayed on, I was like, the hardest thing for me was the cannabis. It was my first love when I was a teenager. And I asked God to take my higher power, to take it away. It's my desire for that and sex and women. Because women was a thing for me too. And he took it all away. I don't have an overwhelming desire to be in a relationship with a woman. I'm single and celibate, and I don't smoke cannabis. I don't even like the smell of it really anymore. It smells like stale beer to me. And the meth, no fucking way. I see too many goofballs in my travels every day that are fucked off on that, and that's not happening no more. Yeah, I got time for that shit.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, the compulsion and obsession gone is evidence. To me anyway. I mean, that was something that I could not get rid of until I prayed and went, please take this away from me. And the fact that it's not there anymore is evidence. Because that was something that just would not go away. The compulsion to drink, the compulsion to, get high with cannabis. Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah, that's a great point. On the night of my last run, I got on my knees and I said my little third step surrender prayer, whatever. I didn't even realize it till probably like 90 days later, because that monkey, that craving beyond my mental control from that moment of pleading out to God was pulled off my back. And I had tried, and I was coming off of a 14-year relapse, and I had tried to put together a clean time again, and I couldn't hang on, man. It was always, I mean, when you're really just dry and you're not tapped into any power, and that monkey doesn't get removed off our back, and we're just trying to white knuckle it around here, putting together clean time. Even my wife, I tried to do it, and she was like, dude, you need a drink or something, because I was just an unbearable prick, but there's a difference between, burning the fatty sounds nice, or a nice cold one on a hot summer day, having those glancing thoughts, or, having a using dream that looked like fun for, when you first wake up or something. That's a far cry from, I had to get loaded multiple times every day, period. There was no ifs, ands, buts, or maybe. And miraculously, that monkey was pulled off my back. And that really was the beginning of the second step for me that my sponsor said. He said, look, we're going to start over, and whatever it was that loved you enough to pull that monkey off your back, that is what your concept, that and the loving, caring, and more powerful than yourself is the core of what we start building this relationship on God. And then whatever it's supposed to be, if it's supposed to turn into some kind of dogma or a religion or however, many people in NA stick to the eclectic approach where we use a little bit of this guy's God, a little bit of that guy's God, and kind of like how Hindus do in a way. They got all kinds of different gods or whatever, but we tap into whatever it is, you know, that's out there. So that was a huge one. Sean?
Sean,
Do you have evidence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still early in recovery, but man, so not only am I clean today, and I made it back to these rooms alive, but I've got working relationships with my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren that I haven't had in 2 years. I have working relationships with my mother, with my brothers, with friends in this room. Man, it's just it's absolutely amazing what this program has done for me so far. And another thing is that he's putting people in my life. Because every morning I ask him to, you know, come into my head before I do, and to take my will in my life and you know, show me how to live, guide me. And he's putting people in my life that are helping me, you know, get it together, get some of my sanity back, and to know that I'm not alone, and that I could reach out to other people. You know, I don't have to isolate anymore, and it's just amazing. I could go on and on. No, but yes, he's working very.
You said you could go on. I said no.
It's working very well in my life. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Good job.
Come on, Lee. Tell us. We'll skip Antonio.
I'll just say yes. Leave it at that.
Just yes. Okay. Antonio.
Oh, I thought you skipped me.
I did.
Yes. I can actually, I don't want to say hold myself back from responding in a manner that I'll regret to a situation, but I'll say I can be held back by my higher power today, right? I'm not as reactive as I used to be. And I can actually demonstrate love as I would like to receive it. And that's pretty cool. And the obsession to smoke. I mean, I remember I started my journey as I was just a pothead many years ago. And I remember thinking this repeatedly. I'm like, how the fuck do people live without weed? And I seriously could not see myself doing it. I really couldn't. Today I'm doing it. That's evidence right there.
Bradley?
Oh, so many different. I have so many different parts of evidence to show me my higher power is real. I'm not even going to talk about all of the blessings that I have as far as being present in my kids' lives and stuff like that. I know God's real for me because recently in my recovery, I started taking matters into my own hands, selling drugs and not trusting that God's going to get me through this, whatever financial situations I'm going through. In this last one, I put all my faith in my higher power, and without even really reaching out left and right, good people just kept giving me these opportunities, and now I have unlimited work. All my financial situations are where they're supposed to be, not above, not below, but I'm content with that. I handle situations ways that I wouldn't have been able to do 2 years ago. My girl could say, fuck you, you piece of shit, and not get a handprint across her face. You know what I mean? I take pride in looking at my family and not seeing bruises on them and not seeing holes throughout my wall because I can control myself. My higher power blessed me with self-control, and that I'm extremely grateful for.
George?
Can't even answer that, man. I would sound like I'm bragging because, you know, life is so good. People ask me if I'm good, and I can actually say I'm good, and I'm good. You know, if my kids need me, I can go see them. You know, we just had a crisis this week, and really, really tough, and it turned out really, really good. Well, I was loaded. There's one person, his name was Memo. I hate to throw out names or be any of that kind of stuff, but he said, God shows up, you know, but you got to bring the shovel. So what that tells me is if I want God to help me, I have to help him. God's just not going to carry me around and say everything's going to be gravy. You know, it just ain't happening. It's just not happening. You know, going to the retreats and all that kind of stuff and get spiritual. You put good in, you get good out, you know, and it's like, that's what I'm trying to tell my son. I'm like, you got to put good stuff in. He eats good, he does everything great, but there's some, he's not, he said, I'm not spiritually fit, and he hit the nail on the head, you know. Stay spiritually fit, you know. Things go great for me 90% of the day. I've been hitting more green lights this week.
Chris?
Chris Addy. Yeah, I don't have to go to sleep thinking about drugs or using drugs, or wake up thinking about drugs or using drugs. And I'm not the person I was before at all, you know. A lot of maturity, you know, and a lot of action, not talking it, but walking it. And, you know, just, again, like Adam touched on it, the obsession, the compulsion. Sean touched on it, the relationship with people that I've damaged tremendously, that I thought I would never have that opportunity again, you know. So, and I'm clean today and alive, you know.
Does anybody have any problem with me moving on with the next question?
Nope.
Okay. Good, because I just noticed we're not doing as good a time as I thought we were. All right, restoration to sanity. Number 16, do I believe that working the rest of the steps will help me in my restoration to sanity? Michael?
Absolutely.
That's an easy no-brainer. It can't hurt, right? All right.
Believe it, makes me a solid man.
Perfect.
All right, 17, do I understand the recovery happens over time? Not overnight, Brian?
Absolutely.
All right. I love the yes and no ones because it's simple. Yeah, a no-brainer. This is the direction we're heading, right? Spiritual principles. This is how it tells you whether or not you're living this step or not, right? This is the big one. These ones here really kind of let you know whether you're really living in the realm of the second step is the spiritual principles. Number 18, am I demonstrating open-mindedness in my life today? Jeff?
Yes.
Okay.
I am here.
You're here, okay. 20, do I believe more change is possible, Jerome?
Of course, man. That's what's keeping me going.
All right, 21, am I willing to be restored to sanity today, Ray?
Absolutely.
22, am I now willing to do what I was previously unwilling to do, Adam?
Yes.
Okay. 23, have I sought help from a power greater than myself today? Everybody in yay? Everybody in yay? Okay.
What about if you were in between?
In between asking help for yourself?
Yeah. Dude, sometimes I find myself, I'm very amnetic.
All right.
And you know, I see God working in my life, right? But I have a partner, right? So I don't see God working in her life, right? And then I start asking myself, why the fuck isn't he doing something for her? You feel me? Because I'm over here working this program and I see the changes in my life. But why isn't he good enough to fucking help her out, right? So I built this fucking case on God's words. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Then the question is, how I saw it.
A good helpful part of that is, and it says it right in our literature, God will not force his goodness on us. God doesn't have a well wand. He gave us self-will.
Right.
He's not going to turn us into little cookie cutter robots because other people think that they need to be on our page. People can be going to church, they can be doing all the religious stuff and still not be surrendered to God. Yeah. Still running their own little moral thing and living in the hypocrisy or whatever. I've seen plenty of that. And if your wife isn't ready to let God lead the way and she's still running the show in her own life and still trying to force square pegs in a round hole and force shit sandwiches down people's throat, sometimes it's going to be a difficult thing to get them to, and we have to remember that we're living this spiritual program. What's the degree that we had to get to?
But see how you almost said it's going to be difficult to get them
there. We can't get them there.
See what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like,
see, the closest thing that you could have got her there was you really being out there relapsing. So now you're back. and for her to actually have a spiritual awakening, either you got to lead her there with your feet through a shining example of God's love and love and tolerance, that you create such an attractive a personality that she wants what Ray's got, and she may not be ready for what Ray's got either. I mean, just like my wife, I waited around for a couple of years for my wife to get clean, and she stayed loaded, you know, and then she got some clean time, and then I had to watch her go out and get loaded for 5 years and wait for her again to become willing to come back again. I couldn't force this program down her throat again. Desperation and willingness is, the road to surrender is often a very lonely one, and it's an individual one that most people have to get on their own. You can't make them get there. Just like it's very rare that you see a couple both get clean at the same time in the rooms, you know. And when they do, 9 times out of 10, one relapses. You know, seeing 2 people come in as partners and sharing the same clean date for any real length of time is like the lottery, man. It just doesn't happen. And for her, you know, I mean, man, some Naranon might help her, but she's got to believe that it's necessary. I know what helped our relationship before my wife got clean was I explained it to her early on that 2 people that lived in misery could live together quite a while in that dysfunction. Dysfunction and misery loves each other, and so we lived in that. But once one person gets clean and some recovery and one gets on a spiritual path, if the other person just stays stagnant and doesn't change, they're going to grow further and further apart as time goes on. And I explained that to my wife that way, and she at least started going to, she didn't go to Naranon, she went to Al-Anon, because she found it at the church that she went to. And so that did help. I don't think if she wouldn't have went and got some kind of spiritual help in one way or another, I don't think we would have survived the marriage anyway. I mean, I think that's kind of what helped get her to where she finally started getting honest with herself about her pill addiction to get clean in the first place, is that it helped that. But it's hard to get people around the corner, man, especially our kids and family, because we're usually the last ones that can give it to them. And our feet do way better talking than our mouths. We can preach all we want to, but the feet just usually do a better job, and that's a slower way, because I just want to tell her, right? Just do what I tell you. If you just do it this way, everything will be great. But yeah, that's just like us getting clean when they was telling us to just stop. Yeah, okay. It's an individual road, and you know, I mean, thank God we had a big old monkey kicking our ass, or we wouldn't be chasing this road either. I don't believe any of us would be here talking about steps if we didn't get our asses kicked. All right, where was I? 20? 22, 24, 25, 26. Have I sought help from a power greater than myself today? 24, yeah. Have I sought help from my sponsor? Gone to meetings and reached out to other recovering addicts? Everybody in here is saying yes. 25.
I said no.
Well, you got this on your own. You don't need no help. 25.
Yeah.
You got this, right?
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Good. It'll help, man. You start working your A game of recovery, then you might have a little more room to talk, and you don't even have to talk, man. Dude, the way we treat people and the love that comes out of us, that's what creates the attraction. And when we're all trying to run the show and play God in their life, that's not very attractive. Number 25, have I come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity? Yeah, but he better bring a big shovel. All right, we've explored our insanity and have started to trust a power greater than ourselves to relieve us from having to continue on the same path. We're beginning to be freed from our illusions. We no longer have to struggle to keep our addiction a secret or isolate ourselves to hide from our insanity. Or to hide our insanity. We have seen how the program has worked for others, and we have discovered that it is beginning to work for us as well, if we let it. Through our renewed faith and achieving the willingness to move on into action, we will work step 3.
George? Let's represent what we can't do alone, we can surely do together. Many of us have said,
Take my will in our lives, guide us in our recoveries, show us how to live clean. Keep coming back, it works so work it for all.